Hey y'all, welcome to Boundaries and Grace. The longer you wait to attend to a problem, the higher the cost to solve it. All relationships need attention, and that's going to cost you. The less willing you are to pay that price for what needs your attention today will be reflected in the cost you pay later, which will be greater than what you would have paid if you would have just paid today because of your delay. So all relationships have costs. The question is just when are you going to pay it, and how much are you going to pay? The longer you delay, the more you pay, because it's like compounding interest. Just like interest compounds on debt, it's like you develop a relationship debt, things start piling up. The longer you wait to deal with the problems happening today in your relationship, the more it costs you in time, attention, energy, peace, health, like your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health. So the more willing you are to pay today for what needs your attention today, it will be reflected in the resources you save later. We actually know that when your relationship is great, the quality of all those other things also goes up. So it's like not only did you avoid the expense, but you also got more back. You got a reward for taking care of it early. You're healthier, peace feels magnified, you're energized, you feel better when your most intimate relationship is better. It's not to say that your most intimate relationship determines your mood, but it does impact it. It does affect it in a pretty big way. I'm Taylor Chandler, a licensed marriage and family therapist, helping people who want two things: to be the best person and to have the best relationship. I help you do that in three ways using my SER framework. Today, we're tackling this issue, which is basically the longer you wait to attend to a problem in your relationship, the higher the cost to solve it. I argue that the more confrontational you are, the more proactive you are, the higher you raise the quality of your relationship. But we see passivity and avoidance all the time. Why do we delay this when we know the consequences? Like when your car signals to you that something is wrong with the engine or the brakes, ignoring it almost certainly means you'll pay for it later. When your relationship tells you it's breaking down and needs support, ignoring it almost certainly means you'll pay more for it later. But we know that if more people went to the mechanic when their car signal came on, there would be fewer breakdowns. We know that if more people attended to their relationship when their relationship signals came on, there would be fewer breakups. Greater, there would be fewer divorces. So you need to know the signals. There are signals before total breakdowns that help avoid breakups or divorces. When you see these signs, you should engage in preventative maintenance. So you need to know the signals and you need to be proactive, because what knowledge is not enough. We need to understand how to apply it. Preventative maintenance is the proactive part. Preventative maintenance are measures taken to confront, manage, and resolve indicators of stress and tension in the relationship. This is what you do before things become too heavy, ultimately causing total breakdown, which may be unrecoverable. But even before that, before total breakdown, you're incurring cost, resentment is building, intimacy and affection is dwindling, trust is breaking, dissatisfaction is growing. This is bad, and something I think everyone could do better to pay more attention to. So today I'm going to focus on highlighting three things that I believe need preventative maintenance. I see this often in my practice, and I think if everyone paid attention to these things, we would have a better relationship landscape. These are three things that regularly derail couples, even after marriage. I'm going to share with you what these issues are, so that you know what they look like and you can identify them in your own relationship. Let's dive in. Number one, how do we communicate? What is your communication style? Anxious, avoidant, aggressive? Number two, where are we going? What are our goals, values, and vision? Are we going in the same direction? Are we in agreement about how to get there? Number three, how we got here, accountability. Are we able to rely on each other to be responsible and accountable for our impact on the relationship? Let's dive into number one, how we communicate. Conflict. Are you avoidant, anxious, or aggressive in conflicts? These are conflict styles that escalate rather than resolve. That's not to say that this is every single conflict style that could ever be defined. Okay. This is, in other words, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a list that causes a lot of problems. Okay. Are you avoidant, anxious, or aggressive in conflict? Conflict styles that escalate rather than resolve. What do these styles look like? Avoidant, you disappear or you stay silent. Understand, if you're this type, you're escalating when you disappear. You're not making things better. You're actually contributing to making things worse. Okay, just because you're not yelling doesn't mean you're not contributing to the problem. People who are avoidant in conflict sweep things under the rug, stay quiet when they need to speak up, and often find safety in isolation rather than with others, even their most intimate partner. Okay. Or are you an anxious style? You get fired up and have a hard time letting go, believing you're being helpful by not letting up when really you're overwhelming and making things worse, just like the avoidant type is also making things worse when they're running away. But you, anxious type, you escalate when you are relentless in your pursuit of the other person, or even in your relentless pursuit of a solution where the other person or the problem doesn't get any space, no breaks, no thinking time, or you stress other people out trying to get them to help you. Okay, neither the anxious or the avoidant way is okay. Instead of justifying your behavior by referring to the other, like the chicken or the egg problem, focus on the part of you that behaves in such an unhelpful way. I've done a lot of work on the anxious and the avoidant trap. There's a lot of episodes on Apple and Spotify. They're actually not on YouTube. If you haven't been to Apple and Spotify, you'll find a lot of my attachment work there. We will see a lot of work again around the anxious and avoidant loop, where the anxious type blames the avoidant type for being anxious, and vice versa. The avoidant type blames the anxious type for being avoidant. It's this endless loop until you, of course, become conscious and step out of it. If you Whether you're interested in that or not, I would really appreciate you going on to Apple and rating, even reviewing my podcast. So that link, I'll link that here. And you can just go to Apple Podcasts, click those stars, and if you leave a review or two, I'd really appreciate it. And thank you to those of you that have left those new reviews. Let's keep moving on. Let's talk about the aggressive type. This can be either an anxious or an avoidant style. This is someone who becomes hostile, volatile, destructive with words or with physical force. This is obviously toxic and should be taken seriously. Never assume any of these things will get better on their own, or with marriage, or with kids, or with age. Unless someone is putting intentional effort on changing their conflict style, their communication style, always expect that it will stay the same. That's why this needs attention early. Let's move on to number 2. Where are we going? Goals, vision, and values. Understand you can have chemistry with someone and lack compatibility. I mean, that needs an episode all by itself. And by the way, y'all, tell me in the comments what you want to hear more of or what you have questions about. Chemistry is the spark, it lights the flame. Compatibility is the burn, it keeps the flame. People don't often talk about how a flame is kept. We talk about how a flame is lit, okay? How to get in the door, but getting in the door doesn't keep you in the house. Okay. Assess and evaluate compatibility. Compare and contrast your goals, vision, and values. Don't be afraid to look at the differences. Be curious about the differences now so you don't get ambushed by them later. They exist, they're coming up some way or another. Better to call them out rather than them coming at you. Okay. Don't try to protect the honeymoon period at the expense of being honest with each other. The more honest you can be with each other, the more trust develops and the more you can sincerely work through differences. And that's, y'all, that's real intimacy, not not just the sexy stuff. Real intimacy is actually being like honest, okay, about how you really feel and what you really think and what you really need and what really works for you and what really doesn't, and where are we different and how does that make me feel and what are my fears about that, and am I seeing this right, and what are my misperceptions, and can I be open enough to be corrected by you? Like, that's real intimacy, not just that other stuff. All right. Okay. Goals and vision, goals, vision, and values are connected, but y'all, but they are not the same. They're similar, but they're not synonyms. Related, but not exactly the same. So you need to know all three and know that they're distinct. Okay. Your goals, your vision, your values, and know theirs. Are they complementary? Are we compatible? Or do they take you in different directions? Okay. Or do you want similar things, but the way you want to get there is in vastly different ways because you share different values? I'll give you an example. Both of you want peace. Okay. Let's say both of you want peace. Peace is a word that came up in your vision. Peace is a word that came up in your values. Maybe both of you value independence. That word might have come up in your values, and you want to get financial freedom. Maybe that came up in your goals. So it seems like we share a lot of things. We have a lot of things in common, and that is important. But maybe one of you sees getting there through a high paying corporate executive job, okay, by climbing the corporate ladder, and others see it, and the other person might see it through having autonomy on a farm and producing their own food and be able to provide for their own livelihood. Okay. you probably can't do in a corporate exec job on a rural farm, and you probably can't do the rural farm in the big city. Those respective environments probably also have some preferences that the two of you value, which would be different. So you could have high attraction. You could even deeply bond over your visions of being financially free, but you will detract from each other greatly when it comes to how you want to go about achieving that vision or those goals. If you find you diverge on goals, values, and or vision in a significant way, especially this needs attention. This can hugely derail you because this is about people's passions, their deepest longings, the essence like of who they are. And so eventually these things really come to surface in some way. I believe that everyone should be doing the thing that's most aligned with them, and they shouldn't compromise it because it makes them anxious and depressed. I really value expression, someone being aligned with who they are and expressing it in the world in the way that's most closely aligned with their most core values. The point of this isn't to judge people as right and wrong, but it is to make a judgment about who is right or wrong for you. Okay. So you need to know what your basic alignment is, what is your right, what is right for you, and seek the compliment in others so that you don't blow everything up when you finally seek to discover yourself after you've had 3 kids with that man or that woman, right? Like you've heard of these stories where someone kind of fits into a box for a while, and then that deep longing part of them starts stirring up and they start to really want to express themselves and find themselves, and it looks a whole lot different than who they actually married and had children with. Okay, like eh, discover now. Okay, because this stuff tends to come up and starts blowing stuff up later in life. So you first and foremost need to have these things answered for yourself, and it can change, but get an idea of what your goals, vision, and values are right now so that you know what to look for. Okay, this will also help you in dating because I think a huge chunk of premature attachments. So I just talked about the issue of people realizing these things after they're married, but I also think that this is that an issue with not knowing your goals, values, and vision while you're dating is an issue. And I think a huge chunk of premature attachment, which I would define as like attaching to a person before the relationship can actually hold that kind of energy. Okay. Um, Treating a relationship as if it's something that it's not, essentially. Like I think a huge chunk of premature attachments happen because someone goes with the spark, what lit the flame, because they didn't really know what would sustain them, what would keep the flame, who and what is really compatible for them, with them. Number 3 signal indicator, something that needs attention, okay, and would need preventative maintenance if this signal came on. The question of accountability. Okay, this is something that needs attention. If this signal is going off, like that means that there's a deficiency here. Do not let it go. All right. Accountability absolutely needs to be assessed and worked on. I say before marriage, but if you happen to have already gotten married, then go ahead and get to it now. You have to be able to rely on each other to take ownership of the impact that you're both having on the relationship. If someone is regularly deflecting responsibility for their impact, minimizing what they've done or what it did to you or others, blaming others, including you, for their mistakes or flaws, this is an accountability issue. This needs to be dealt with regardless of whether someone is doing this on purpose or not. Don't get caught in the weeds of trying to be a lie detector or a gaslight detector. Okay. You could be right, you could be wrong. Just stay focused on the accountability. If someone is doing this on accident, like missing accountability on accident, like they're unintentionally deflecting, denying, minimizing, which does happen, y'all, can be an unconscious defense mechanism. If someone is doing this on accident and they want to be a better person for themselves and keep the relationship, they will take steps to fix their accountability issue. If someone's doing it on purpose, they won't give you accountability. Just focus on the goal. Don't try to focus on whether they are lying or gaslighting you, because we get into back and forths about that often. I'll talk about that in another video about why that is a fruitless, a futile, a silly conversation to have, and how to stop it. I actually got a comment on TikTok about a from a husband who shared that he had to hold his wife accountable. So they had already been married and he had to bring some things to her attention, or he was willing to step away from the marriage. And she actually realized that she needed to take accountability for some things. And they took a really positive turn in the right direction. He says their future is really bright. So I'll actually post that comment here so you can see that. Point being that this is an issue that people are willing to get divorced on. Okay. I think I said in the very last video, and I'll keep saying, I don't think that you should marry someone who cannot take accountability, because the issues that that person comes with is so endless. It's like infinite issues come with people like this. They're just they're just drains. They're just drains. So I want to reiterate how important it is that you get this accountability issue under control for yourself, and also in your partner. Like, they needs to, if they have an issue with this thing needs to be reined in and seriously dealt with, because people are really willing to divorce you over this, because it makes life so unnecessarily challenging and hard. You literally, you don't even realize it. Like, this issue, when you're not an accountable person, you don't even realize how big of a problem you really are. And so I hope that if someone is bringing this to you, like in good faith, like trying to show you some light to help you to figure this out, um, I hope that you receive it graciously, because you really, and I've been like this, and it's so unbecoming. It's very cringy when I think about myself in this state, and it's really unbecoming when I come across it in somebody else. When you lack accountability and you minimize, deflects, and blame other people for what is actually your responsibility and your impact, um, regardless of who influenced you to do what, you don't even realize how draining it is for someone to sit across from you dealing with that. And they're willing to leave you before or after the wedding, before or after the marriage, because you create so many problems. When you allow a relationship to continue while you make excuses for what they won't take responsibility for, or you just stop making excuses for them altogether, and now you ignore it, you just ignore their deficiencies, you just try to ignore their issues, you try to ignore the signals on the dashboard glaring in your face telling you that something's wrong, you are now screwing yourself. Every day you do that, you might as well take $1 out of your satisfaction bank account. At some point, you'll probably realize you're in relationship debt. Okay, you're going to overdraft the account, because people without accountability usually aren't pouring into all these other amazing areas of your life. No. So when you're excusing these kinds of things, when you're excusing an irresponsible person, it's not like they're also depositing really positive things in your life. And it's like, well, I get all of these other perks. No, you don't. I know you don't, because that's not who they are. People who lack accountability in conflict and communication, there also seem to be net negatives in general. So they're drags all around, because they're irresponsible people. And the irresponsibility will show up in areas outside of just conflict with you. When you let an irresponsible person just like kind of get off the hook, when you let someone who lacks accountability just get off the hook, you're not just letting them off the hook for that one thing. You're letting them off the hook for all of the things that character issue is attached to. You're not just letting them off the hook for one incident. You're letting a way of being off the hook, like, because it's attached to so many other areas of their life, or how they treat you, or how they see the world, and how they think about you. You have to stop making excuses for people who always have excuses. At some point, you end up enabling the bad behavior that you hate. Okay, we'll do an episode on that another time. So, y'all, let's wrap this up. Communication slash conflict style, goals, values, and vision alignment, and accountability are 3 signs on your relationship dashboard you need to assess. If the light is on, it's a sign that you need maintenance. And the earlier, the better. Y'all, if you're interested in other things that make relationships fail, you could be interested in The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse by John and Julie Gottman, relationship experts and therapists. I'll link something in the description if you're interested in that. Those are like 4 things that when they show up in a relationship predict divorce. You might be interested in that research. And here's my final word, y'all. Don't take a good person for granted. Do the work needed. You do not want to be out there dating again if you do not have to. Okay. If someone is able and willing, or is willing to become able, and you are not worried about the 3 things in this video, it could be worth holding on to. If you are worried about things in this video, complete the couples interest form that I'm linking in the description of this episode, and let's do some maintenance. If you're interested in working together one-on-one, click the link tree in my bio, find your interest form there. Please like, subscribe, and share the video with someone who could use it. See you next time, y'all.